Good morning. Um, I'm excited today. Again, I'm always excited because I love to do this. I love to talk about what the Bible says. I love to teach you um, more about how to trust God and how to love Him and just to draw you closer. It just excites me, and God asked me to do this, and so I'm happy to do this. I'm happy that He uses me. So today we're going to talk about somebody that God used, and his name was Moses. And I'm sure that you guys have heard of him. He was the little baby in the basket. Maybe you don't know that story. Maybe we'll do that another time. But Moses was man. He was, I think, about 80 years old when this happened that I'm going to tell you about. And the Israelites, which is God's people, were in Egypt. And they were slaves, and they were there for over 400 years. Now Moses wasn't 400 years old, so that meant like his people were there for over 400 years. And do you know what a slave is? A slave is somebody who gets bought, and they're just somebody who works. They don't get paid for their work. It's like possession. You know how a Roomba runs around the house and vacuums and they don't get paid? It's kind of like that. You just got to do the work because you're told to do the work. But you're not an electronic machine. You're an actual person. But they just treat you like you're a machine without any love or anything else. So they were slaves, and they were made to work really hard. So I'm going to start. It's very close to the beginning of your Bible, and it's called Exodus. And Exodus means to leave, and so that's what this piece of the Bible is about. It's about them leaving Egypt. So I'm going to start in Exodus 3. And the Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I'm concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them out of that land into a good and spacious land. So God says, I hear my people. They're having trouble, and so I'm coming to save them. And so he picked somebody to do that. And do you know who that somebody is? Yeah, Moses. So he tells Moses that this is what I'm going to do. And he tells Moses, and Moses says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Because God says, I want you to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go. And Moses says, really? Because you think he's going to listen to me? But when God is with you and God tells you to do something, then it's going to happen. Okay, so let's skip to chapter 5. So Moses and his brother Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival to me in the desert. And the Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. So Pharaoh said no. They said, God says, let the people go into the desert, and that's what I want you to do. And Pharaoh said, I don't know God. I don't listen to God. I don't have to do that. And so he said no. Now, Moses had gone to the leaders of the Israelites and told them what God said. And they said, good, sounds good to us. Let's get out of here. Do what God says, and we'll do this. So, but Pharaoh said no. And then he said, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work. and you were stopping them from working. So Moses and Aaron were telling people, about what was going on and stuff. And Pharaoh said, don't be starting this nonsense and letting them follow you instead of me. And so he got mad, and he made it harder for them. They were making bricks, and you make bricks with the clay, and you put straw in it to make it harder. And they used to be given the straw. Now they had to go collect the straw. So their job as slaves was hard enough, but it made it even harder. And the people got so mad at Moses. They said, what did you do? You told Pharaoh to let us go, and now he's mad, and now we're working even harder. Oh my goodness. So they were not very happy, because people don't always trust in what God says. They just see what's happening now. They just want to fix what's happening now. So, but do you think Moses listened to the people, or did he listen to God? Yeah, he listened to God. And God said, ask Pharaoh. Keep asking Pharaoh to let the people go. So Moses kept asking, but Pharaoh keeps saying no. And every time he said no, things happened. Terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things. And Moses would ask again, over and over. And what happened each time? Terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things. Very bad things. Until finally, this was like long time, months, that this kept happening. And finally, Pharaoh had enough. Now let me read you from chapter 12. I'm skipping over all the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things, because that takes a long time. But you could always read it if you wanted to. So, in 12:31, let me find it. Okay, so Pharaoh finally had enough, and during the night he called Moses and Aaron and said, up, leave my people, you and the Israelites, go. Worship the Lord as you requested. Take your flocks and your herds as you said, and go. Get out of here. I am so done with you. Sometimes, has that ever happened where you just pester and pester and pester your mom or your dad, and finally they just lose it and say, get out of here, enough. And that's what happened with Pharaoh. He was just fed up to here with all the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things, and said, I give up, get out, do what you want, just leave me alone. So Moses took the people out of Egypt. The Bible says 600,000 people. That's a lot of people. Actually, they said 600,000 men, because on top of that, there was also women that weren't in that number, and kids, and some other people who just wanted to come with them. So it was way more than that, 600,000. And they also took, it said, their flocks and their livestock, so that's their cows and their sheep and their other animals. Huge. Can you imagine that many people just leaving? It would be like a whole great big, I don't know, like a little city just up and left. That's a lot of people. I just can't even imagine it. So, how did they know where to go? What do you think? Do you think God would just say, get out of there and not have a plan? No, we know God better than that. He always has a plan. So, we're going to go to 13:17, and it says, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Now, this shows us something about God. He doesn't always give us the easy way. He gives us the best way. Right? Always. So he said, I don't want them to have the easiest way. Because if they go through Philistine country, and the Philistines didn't like these guys, and so there would be a war. And they knew as soon as it got hard, these Israelites would change their mind and go running back to be slaves. Isn't that just like people? As soon as things get hard, we say, no, we're done. We give up instead of trusting in the promises of God. So God knew their hearts. He knew their hearts. He knew what they would do, and he knew what was best. So he took them the long way around. Now, to get them to follow him, this is so cool. So I'm going with 21 and 22. It said, by day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and at night a pillar of fire to give them light, so they could travel by day or night. So he showed them where to go. I don't know exactly what it looks like because I wasn't there. But a pillar is like a long post, like a great big post. And so I'm thinking that the pillar of cloud would almost look like a tornado. You know how if you've ever seen a picture of a tornado, there's a cloud and it comes down in a pillar, right? And so this was going ahead of them. But if I saw a tornado, I would run the other way. But this was, it didn't say a tornado, it said a cloud. So it would look like this. And it went ahead of them and they followed that cloud. Now at night you can't see the cloud because it's dark. And so it said it was a pillar of fire. Again, that would scare me to follow that. But if I knew that this is what God was putting in front of me, then I would follow it. And so they knew exactly where to go. They didn't have to wonder, should I turn left? Should I turn right? Should I whatever? They just had to follow that. I think that is so cool. That is amazing that God made that way. Okay, so in the meantime, let me see, we'll go to 14:5. So the king of Egypt, that's not the Pharaoh, it's the king, he was told that the people had left. Pharaoh and his officials changed their mind about them. So probably he got in trouble from the king. And he said, what have we done? We let the Israelites go and we have lost our slaves. So he had his chariot made ready and he took his army with him. They took 600 of the best chariots along with other chariots of Egypt with officers over all of them. So they had this humongous army to chase the Israelites. So he gave his word and then he changed his mind. Do you remember last week? We talked about that. Your yes is your yes and your no is your no. But Pharaoh doesn't go by God's laws. So he changed his mind and went back on his word. That's not a good thing to do. Especially when you make a promise to God. So Pharaoh was chasing them. Now, this fire and cloud that the Israelites were following, it led them down to the edge of the Red Sea. The Red Sea, you know what a sea is, it's like a humongous body of water, bigger than a lake. It's like an ocean in there. And so it's huge. And God led them down to the Red Sea. And so the sea is behind them and the army is coming. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's read. So the people are mad because things are not working out. The army is chasing them. So they're mad again because they don't trust what God is saying. They don't trust Moses. And Moses is saying, what are you doing, God? We're in trouble. We are in so much trouble. And the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff. That's his like a walking stick. And stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the waters so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. Did you hear what he said? Raise your staff and stretch it out over the Red Sea to divide the water so that you can go on dry ground. I have never seen that happen. When you come to a lake or an ocean and you say, I would like just to cross there, thank you very much. If there is not a bridge, you got to go around. But God said, nope, put your staff out and I'm going to split the water. So big wall of water on this side, big wall of water on that side, and you can go right through. My goodness. Let me see where I was. And so he did that. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it to dry land. So it took some time. He didn't do it like instantly. He caused the waves and stuff. Now at the same time, he moved the pillar of fire in between the Israelites and the Egyptian army, so that the Israelites or the Egyptians couldn't get to them. So he was protecting them. Isn't that cool? Because he knew it was going to be a little bit for this water to split and to make it dry enough. You know how it rains and rains and rains, and then it's so muddy you can hardly even walk through it? So he's drying it out a little bit. And so to give them the time, he moved that pillar to keep it in front of them, to keep them safe. So the waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and a wall of water on their left, and the Egyptians chased them. So I guess by that time the fire had moved, or the cloud, whatever pillar was separating them. And all of Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. And during the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army, and he threw it into confusion. And he made the wheels of their chariots come off, so they had difficulty driving. So God was slowing them down. He made them a little bit mixed up and not thinking clearly. And he broke the wheels on their chariots. So he slowed them down to give the Israelites time to all get through. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and the horsemen." So all the Israelites were out now, but the Egyptians were still in there. And the Egyptians were running toward it, and the water flowed back and covered the chariots and the horsemen and the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea, and not one of them survived. So the water just closed back up. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and a wall of water on their left. And that day the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the great power the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. So they finally trusted him. But it wasn't until everything was done. Moses trusted him all the way through. Even when he's saying, "What are you doing, God? What are you doing, God?" He still did what God said. Because Moses knew that God makes a way. He always makes a way. And people don't always trust him, like the ones that were following Moses. And they get anxious and afraid, and they want things done right now, instead of taking the hard way around that's better for them. Or they think that wall of water can't move. They think there's something in their life that is it's there no matter what. But God can move anything, even a sea or a mountain. Because God can do anything. And we know that, right? And he loves us, right? And he wants the best for us. I love this story because it shows that. He knows our heart. He knows what we're thinking. He knows how we're going to do things. And he gives us stuff. And sometimes we can see it. Like they could see the pillar of fire and the cloud. But sometimes they can't. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes we just have to trust him. And so we do. In this time of COVID and staying home and schools off and schools on and whatever, and people just want to fix it. We just want to fix it now. but we got to trust God in it. We trust that God has a plan. And even if it doesn't look so great right now, we know that God has a plan and He's taking care of us. He knows. So I want you to go with that and just, that's just an awesome story to imagine that. And read it again if you want. So we are going to do a craft. I better get on that. I've got some friends here, my little desert friends. Okay, so we are just going to make something to keep us busy while we're waiting. Sometimes maybe waiting for the school bus or waiting for supper or just if you're bored. So we're going to take some clay, some modeling clay, and make it into just a long tube, okay, like that. And then we're going to take 8 toothpicks and we are going to stab them in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now they're standing up nice and, whoops, that one's not so straight. There we go. So we've got 8 toothpicks standing in the clay. Now, do you know what pony beads are? Pony beads are they're round and they've got a pretty big hole in them. So I have got 7 colors of pony beads. And I have 4 of each color. I'm going to make you do some math. Do you know how many beads that is? 4 times 7. Good for you. 28. Okay, so I'm not going to put them in any kind of order. I am just going to put them on here like this. And I'm going to go back and forth. Now the rule is, when we play this game, there cannot be more than 4 beads on any toothpick, okay? There can be less, but not more than 4. So I'm just going to go through and put them on. This is my 3rd row. I hope you can see this clear enough. So there's not going to be the same amount on each one. Whoops. Okay, so these 4 rows have 4 and these 4 rows have 3. Now what we want to do is we want to get all the same color on a toothpick. And we're going to do that by moving them around. So we can move one at a time. So I'm going to move this pink one over here. And then I can take this brown one over here. Now I have 3 browns in a row. So I want this other brown one. So I'm going to move this one to over here. I can do that because that makes 4. And now I've got, there's that brown one. So now I've got a whole row of brown. So what should I do next? Maybe start some white ones. So I'm going to move this white one over here. Now I want this white one. So I'm going to move the red one and move the white one. Now remember, I can't have more than 4, so I can't put another one on this one, or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. I want that white one out of there. Can I do that? There's 3 on that stick, 4 on that stick. I can put that one there. There we go. I've got 4 on there. Now we keep moving it. We keep doing that until we've got all the colors each on their own stick. And when you're done, you can just take them off. And mix them around and do it again. You can play this game as many times as you want. It's so easy and it's so fun. And there is always a way to do it. Sometimes you might get stuck. But if you think about it hard enough, there is a way. So have fun with that craft. It's a pretty easy one to do. And you can get those pony beads at the dollar store. And just have fun with that. I'm going to leave you with a really cool song about the story we just talked about. And it's called Pharaoh, Pharaoh, Let My People Go. So we'll see you next time. Have a good week.
Hey River City kids, today's Worship Wednesday, and Gus the Explorer is taking us all the way to Egypt to sing one of our favorites, Pharaoh, Pharaoh.
Here we go! I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. Burning bush told me just the other day that I should come over here and stay. I got to get my people out of Pharaoh's land and lead them on to the promised land. I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. So me and God's people headed to the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army coming after me. So I took my rod, stuck it in the sand, and all of God's people walked on dry land. I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. I said a Pharaoh, Pharaoh, oh baby, let my people go. Yeah, 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 yeah. Pharaoh's army was a coming to. So what do you think that I did do? Well, I raised my rod and I cleared my throat, and all of Pharaoh's army did the dead man's flow.